Hello, everyone. My name is Kalyani. Thank you for joining us for our presentation. I'm from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee at the Department of Education Policies and Community Studies.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amal ElHaimeur. I'm from the University of Kansas African and African American Studies Department.
Our studies today is titled Social and Linguistic Factors in the Acquisition of Heritage Language, Perspectives from the Nepali and Arabic Heritage Speakers. We will have an overview of the presentation, include the background and purpose of the study, some theoretical underpinnings of heritage speakers and heritage language, characterize the participating heritage language speakers who are living in Milwaukee. So we will share with you some of our findings and implications of the research. In terms of the research and what gave us the impetus to do the research is a question that, a common question, that is, how do we ought to maintain heritage language, and who is responsible for maintaining the heritage language? In the discussion of these questions, we came up with research initiatives that attempts to examine the linguistic and social factors affecting language acquisition and maintenance in two heritage speakers group, Arabic and Nepali.
So our study, Social and Linguistic Factors in Heritage Speakers in Heritage Language Acquisition, is guided by 4 questions. The first question is, what are the social and linguistic factors influencing the pattern of heritage language acquisition and maintenance? What characterizes heritage language development across different heritage speakers groups? How the pattern of language acquisition is affected by different stages in life, and what role family and community play in heritage language development. So the term heritage speaker was first coined in Canada and then introduced to the United States during the 1990s. And the term has been used to refer to linguistic minorities and children of immigrants who may be first, second, or third generation. Also, it refers to a native speaker who is bilingual, capable of speaking a minority language in the home, but also a native speaker or a child learner of majority language. And here in this case, we have minority speaker of Nepali and Arabic, and the majority language is English. The term also was used to refer to individuals with family or ancestral ties to a language other than English who exert their agency in determining if they are heritage language speakers for that language, which means here that language proficiency is not required to be identified as a heritage language according to this definition. The term was also used to refer to a language student who is raised in a home where a non-English language is spoken, or at least understand the predominant language. They are therefore bilingual both in their minority and Tamil and majority language. And the definition that we are adopting in the study is the one by Montreal, which emphasizes the proficiency in the 2 languages. So what makes a language a heritage language is its local social context and the conditions under which heritage languages are learned. And we mean here by context. So maintaining the heritage language strengthens and reinforces bonds with the heritage community and leads to a greater overall connection with family, friends who also speak the language. Also, cultural tradition and values are passed on through heritage language. Heritage speakers' language proficiency is shaped by particular input conditions. What we mean by particular input condition is quality and quantity of input. Heritage language acquisition is a lifespan process, which means it's not limited to the first 5 years. Heritage language acquisition is not a deficient or incomplete acquisition, as we'll discuss in the literature, but an instance of differential language acquisition.
I'm sorry. Conceptual work is based on the study done by Alberini 2014, which looks at the heritage language context and the conditions in which the heritage language is learned. While most of the linguistic and acquisition-oriented research has offered a more nuanced perspective on the language development of the heritage language speakers, but very few studies seem to focus on making a more direct contributions to the heritage language learning in the context of schools, family, and communities. Besides, there is a lack of study that looks at the perspective of the heritage language speakers themselves. So this study is going to examine the linguistic factors, including the language input and use throughout the lifespan. The study will also focus on the input embedded in the social context that will help us understand more directly the role of family and community in shaping the heritage language proficiency. Now let's look at the methods of study and the sample. This study is very much grounded in the constructivist approach to research, which looks at the relationship between the heritage language learning and its social dimensions, which are very much based on the sociology of education. It utilizes a mixed method of research, both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative data was collected through the in-depth interviews with 20 heritage speakers from Nepali and Arabic background. Quantitative studies were based on the survey data, questionnaire-based survey data that was collected, usually to collect the data detailing demographic background, perceived language proficiency levels. The surveys were developed based primarily on the reviews of research conducted by Alberini in 2014, and also based on the Chin and Tucker studies done in 2005. The interviews were interviews or the participants were contacted by snowballing, so it's a purposeful sample. We did the reviews, we did the interviews in the multiple points, including the community-based organization, student organization, and the research team's personal contacts. In the final sample, we selected 10 from Nepal and 10 from Arabic countries. Out of them, 8 were males and 12 were females, aged between 18 to 20. Participants, most of them are second-generation heritage speakers. 15 of them were born in the United States, 5 arrived before 10 years old. All of them lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and are attending local colleges and universities.
All right, so these are the results of our study. Concerning language proficiency, we can see that participants tended to rate higher in English. So the orange color here is English. Speaking is the strongest language skill in both communities, and we can see here that Arabic heritage speakers rate themselves higher in writing than the Nepali heritage speakers. So, linguistic factors in language acquisition. We can see here that parents, siblings, electronic media are the main sources of input across the two communities. Finding number 1, the importance of the first 5 years of input in language acquisition. The first 5 years is very important for language acquisition, which means language is not stabilized by 5 years. The results show that there is a slight decrease in the amount of input from parents during middle school years for both groups as English becomes the dominant language. In the Arabic heritage speaker group, the percentage of language input from parents is at 90%. Then the input drops to 62%. In the Nepali group, parental language input is at 80% before elementary school and then declined to 65% during middle school years. So this chart is from the Arabic data, and it's representing language input from parents. We can see here that the input from parents was high before 5 years, and then it drops. And English, the input was low during the first 5 years, then it's increasing after 5 years at the expense of Arabic. Choose. So here we have, these charts are showing language used in both groups. We can see here that language is used mainly with parents and community. When we say community, it includes sibling, also interacting with the community in cultural events and with friends and peers. So again, another pattern that was emphasized in the finding is the importance of the first 5 years in language use. Of course, there are variations in terms of language use in both groups. For both groups, family context was important in language use. The use of heritage language across the 4 stages: elementary, middle school, and high school. The mean percentage of use of Arabic in the Arabic group during the 4 development stages is 76%. The use of Arabic is 83% before 5, 65 during the middle school, and stabilizes during the high school period. And the mean percentage of language used in the Nepali heritage language is 68% and decreases across the 4 phases. Again, I have a sample from language use with parents that shows the importance of the first 5 years. So we can see here that English, the use of English, it was low before the before 5 years. Then Arabic, it was high. Then it increases, and English, then it decreases, but English increases at the expense of Arabic. And we can see here the difference that language during the high school, it starts increasing. Maybe they have more awareness about the importance of their language, and also at university, they start taking Arabic. Finding number 3, language attitudes. So here in language attitudes, we ask our participants about their mother tongue, heritage language, the usefulness of heritage language, and if they want to use language, and also to pass the language to their children. And also we ask them about the fact if heritage language has a strong tie to their ethnicity and religion. So the finding is that participants from the Arabic group agree that Arabic is their mother tongue, and also they strongly agree that they consider other languages besides Arabic to be their mother tongue, and here it's English. And that's not contradicting other findings, since heritage speakers are bilingual and they have 2 mother tongues, the minority language and the majority language. And the same is true for Nepali heritage speakers, as they agree that Nepali is their mother tongue, all of them, and also they strongly agree that there are other languages, and here it's English, it's their mother tongue. Concerning the usefulness of heritage language, 100% of the Arabic participants, they agree that Arabic is a useful language. They strongly agree that Arabic as a heritage language is a useful language for them. For the Nepali, 50% agree that their heritage language is a useful language. I want to use Arabic in my daily life. So 100% strongly agree with that statement. Concerning Nepali, I want to use Nepali in my daily life and pass it to my children. 50% agree with that statement. Concerning the question if they consider heritage language to have a strong tie to their ethnicity and religion. Arabic heritage speakers, all of them, they strongly agree with the statement. 33% agree with the statement. We can see here the variation in attitudes regarding heritage speakers groups, regarding Arabic heritage speakers groups and Nepali as well. So heritage speakers' attitudes are an important factor in language acquisition and maintenance. There is, of course, variation among the studied groups, as the 2 groups have different heritage language experiences. And here I need to point that Arabic heritage speakers in Wisconsin, they are about, this is like a big community, about 10,000 speakers. And also they have access to schools, which they have Islamic elementary school in Milwaukee, and they have middle school and high school when Arabic and Islamic studies are emphasized. And Nepali community, it's a small community, is in Wisconsin. Heritage languages are used mostly within the context of the home, but there were variations in terms of languages spoken at home, and this is partly reflected parents' language competencies, their attitudes to language transmission, and their engagement in social community networks. Finding number 4 is heritage language identity and the immigrant background. Our finding demonstrated the ways which language use is connected to specific heritage language learning contexts. So all the participants speak their heritage language. And for those from Arabic background, the maintenance of Arabic language was particularly significant due to religious needs. So Arabic heritage speakers consider religion as a key motivational factor to heritage language and language maintenance. And there is an association between language and religion, as they say in their comments. Arabic helps me understand my religious text and feel close to my religion. Arabic is the language of all religious texts. So for them to speak Arabic is a necessity so they can practice their religion, Islam. Nepali language is not a prerequisite to religious practices. There is no relation between, and this comment from our participants, there is no relation between religion and my language. There are Nepalis who are Hindu, and they have also other religions, but all can speak Nepali. So this comment show that different social groups have different needs.
In terms of the discussion, I would like to focus on the importance of the input, the years of input. Heritage language is found to be very implicit identity for the second generation heritage speakers, in both Nepali and Arabic. Results are in line with in terms of the proficiency, because speaking is the strongest level of competency for both of them, both the groups. Heritage speakers are found to be very heterogeneous in terms of the way they experience heritage language. Linguistic factors are very important in the language acquisition. The first 5 years, I think, is the lifespan in which the language acquisition period is very, very critical. So this raises a lot of questions in terms of how schools can be more impactful, or in terms of learning languages. The pattern of heritage language is rooted in both private and mostly in the private, but it also has some public significances. Parents and the community are the main source of the heritage language input. This raises a lot of questions in terms of building the capacities of community in promoting the heritage language. The previous studies also show the community is the main context of the language acquisition and use. So the study shows that the larger context of the language input and use is the same across the heritage speakers community, which means that both groups are positioned under the majority or dominant language context. So both of them have the similar kinds of positionality in terms of learning language. So social motivational factors also is not a homogeneous factor. So they are dependent on the heritage speakers community context and their capacity in the communities. In terms of the influence and attitude in the language acquisition, we have shown that there are positive attitudes of Arabic speakers as opposed to some negative or lower rated attitude among the Nepali speakers. In terms of the writing proficiency, Arabic speakers have rated themselves higher in writing proficiency of their language, while the Nepali speakers rated themselves lower in the writing. It also suggests that religious and ethno-linguistic identity is one of the main factors in the language maintenance. This research also concludes, the Rauchi's 2002 research, that Arabic as a heritage language will not die because of its relation to ethno-linguistic and religious identity. All Arabic participants in the study took Arabic classes, since Arabic is a diglossic language, which means it has its own variation and standards of the language.
Yeah, I just want to add here for Arabic speakers, when we said it's an diglossic language, which means they acquire since birth their informal Arabic. Then for modern standard Arabic, they acquire it or they learn it at the school setting. And here, modern standard Arabic is the one that they need so they can practice their religion.
Okay, so language acquisition is not simply a process of learning skills, language skills, but it is very much intertwined with immigration history of the heritage speakers, their identity, and serves as a mechanism for communicating with the families and their communities. In conclusion, we would like to say that heritage language is not only important, but it is vital to the success of these heritage language speakers, but it is also important for the success of the community's adjustment in this in this country. It's not just a communicative mechanism that's limited to the first 5 years, but it's expanded throughout the lifespan. So enhancing multiculturalism by the schools in terms of the language development will provide a far more inclusive perspective of heritage language acquisition, although this effort would require a wider shift in the attitudes towards immigration, migration, and race. Heritage language speakers are not a homogeneous group. There's a social and cultural variation in the context of the language acquisition. Heritage speakers are not only bilingual, and most importantly, they are family language brokers, engaging in their parents and community in a more specific way to help them learn language and get adjusted to the culture of the dominant group. This part is often ignored by the educators and policymakers. If heritage language are supported and enhanced, they will be national linguistic resource for the communities. Parents and communities, another conclusion is that they play an essential role in maintaining and preserving the language. The importance of the parents and community in the transmission of the heritage language has been very clear in this study, but the political and the social context of the language use and policies that excludes languages other than English language may create an environment where the heritage languages are not valued and where there is hostility, which feeds on the ideas of separations. So at the end, I would like to say that the heritage language is very important. It's vital to the success of the individual, but also the success of the whole communities.
Thank you so much for watching our presentation.
For watching us and for listening to us. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact both of us. Thank you.
And we look forward to meeting you via Zoom next week. Thank you so much.
Saying bye to you.
All right, bye everyone. Thank you
Bye.
for your time.